Good morning. Welcome to worship
with the Elliott Church of South Natick.
It is good to be together. Today is our last Sunday of the regular church year, and next week will mark the beginning of summer services.
Adam will be preaching next week, followed by Sarah Ward the following week.
It is also my last Sunday with you until I return in the fall. We gather this morning from across great distance to be together, knowing that in times such as these, we need one another for motivation, for nourishment,
for accountability, for inspiration.
Carol and Jen, members of the Internship Teaching Committee, join me as readers this morning. Together we'll reflect on where we have been this year and where we are going.
And I will share with you some of what I have learned. Come and be welcome. Let us worship together.
Please join us now in the recitation of our covenant. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Now let us sing our song of exaltation.
Psalm 2 by Nan Merrill. Why do nations and people plot against one another, setting themselves apart and conspiring against the beloved and those who follow love's way? They say to themselves, we are freed of love's law. Humility and service are for others. The beloved, who is ever present, can but smile at their foolishness, knowing that one day they will fall to their knees in regret. Let me share the way of love. Love calls to us, you are mine. Ask of me what you will. I give you all nations, the whole universe to care for, to be your delight. You will shatter fear as an iron rod, hitting a clay pot. Listen then, you leaders of nations. Heed well, O people of the earth. Serve the beloved with reverence. Bow your heads and embrace love. Otherwise, ignorance and fear will be your companions, bringing destruction and despair. Blessed are all who dwell in love.
Our second reading this morning is a reading by the Reverend Rebecca Ann Parker. In the midst of a world
marked by tragedy and beauty,
there must be those who bear witness
against unnecessary destruction and who, with faith, rise and lead
in freedom, with grace and power. There must be those who speak honestly
and do not avoid seeing what must be seen of sorrow and outrage,
or tenderness and wonder. There must be those
whose grief troubles the water, while their voices sing and speak refreshed worlds.
There must be those whose exuberance rises with lovely energy that articulates earth's joys. There must be those who are restless
for respectful and loving relationship among human beings,
whose presence invites people to be themselves without fear. There must be those who gather with the congregation
of remembrance and compassion, draw water from old wells,
and walk the simple path
of love for neighbor.
And there must be communities of people who seek to do justice, to love,
kindness, and walk humbly with God, who call on the strength of soul force to heal,
transform, and bless life. There must be religious witness. Therein ends the reading. And would you please join me now in a time of
silence and spoken prayer?
So you can
settle your body, settle your heart, settle your mind. Perhaps you clasp your hands on your lap, or maybe you turn your palms upward.
Joining in the very act
of opening our hearts.
Begin with a deep, full breath in and a deep breath out. God that is justice, that is love, help us to be open to your presence in this moment, in this place. We begin by lifting up prayers for all of those who are in need this morning. Those who are holding grief and anxiety and fear. Those who are struggling against systemic injustice.
Those who are angry.
Oh God, we lift them to you. We give thanks for this day, this Sunday morning.
Yet another Sunday morning in a time that a new day does not always seem like a given.
We give thanks that we are here, that we are together, and that we have one another.
We give thanks for the health and the joy that we do have. And we ask, oh God, that you might stir in us
movement to action. Stir in us an unrest
so that we might remember that we are called to work for justice in this world.
These days are uncertain. We carry so much unknown. We ask that you might walk with us.
This path of uncertainty, this path of trying to do what's right, what's good, and what's holy in the world.
We know we cannot do this alone, so strengthened by the bonds of love that connect us,
we remember that all of your children we may call family.
We pray, O God,
that our hearts might break open, that they might grow larger, that our kindness and our compassion might grow and develop and transform, and with it, that we might transform this world.
May it be so. And now, would you please join me in reciting the prayer that Jesus taught to his disciples
when teaching them how to pray? It's a prayer that has been prayed over the years through communities of faith. And in praying the Lord's Prayer, we connect ourselves with this long line of faithful people working for justice in the world.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
An excerpt from The Calling Church by Reverend Lillian Daniel. Sometimes, in our careful attention to the state of seminary education, to the latest classroom texts, or to trends in denominational training, we forget to consider the most important pipeline, the local church. The local church that produces people with a sense of call takes upon itself an enormous responsibility, both to discern the call alongside or to discern a different call to a different path. Smart seminaries do well to weigh the call that comes mediated over time through a community of faith more heavily than a mountaintop experience between God and a midlife crisis. Churches fortunate enough to teach future ministers through seminary intern programs have a leg up. They are constantly sending the message to their members that God calls a rich variety of people to the ministry. Rather than week after week projecting one model in the pastor, interns stream through the church in all their quirky eccentricity to remind us of the wideness of God's mercy and the delightfully disturbing idea that any one of us could be called to this work. As calling churches, we band together not to lift up ordained ministry, but to lift up the church that deserves fine leaders.
I cannot tell you exactly what I expected
My first year working and learning at the Elliott Church to look like.
but I can tell you that it was not
This.
It was not the unfolding of a global pandemic,
Taking the lives of over 115,000 people in the United States alone.
the beginning of a massive wave of unemployment and an impending economic crisis. Nor was it a series of violent events against Black bodies sparking civil unrest.
On a scale not seen since Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968.
For the most part, I imagined you all would teach me about your particular ways of doing church. That I would glean bits of wisdom from participating in community life.
And learning about your traditions.
I could not have predicted that instead
The doors of our physical building would close.
and we would be sailing together on a ship that was rickety to begin with through uncharted waters. That we would be redefining what it means to be a religious community in the new world, unfolding in front of our very own eyes.
I could not have predicted that Adam and I would have no idea what we were doing on the same day. I had sort of hoped that might happen on different days, but not in COVID times.
Ministry mentors have always told me, make the most out of your internship years. Your internship is your opportunity to try things and to fail. To which I've always
Silently wondered,
I'm supposed to confine that to 2 years? And more recently, this year doesn't count, right?
because to try and to fail, we have certainly done both of those together. And I have learned so much.
I've learned not to put the
Folding coffee hour table on top of the active beehive on the church lawn. And when you do, not to do it again the next Sunday. And then again the next Sunday.
I've learned that if you
Suspect there might be someone silently locked in the bathroom, and you need to get a historical door ripped off its hinges, that Ben, Lee, Chris, and Carol are totally your people.
I've learned not to pick the Catholic meditation manual for the Advent reading group, and that there is a reason only Felicia should touch the coffee pot.
and that in order for the microphone to work, you have to turn it on. But in all seriousness, it will take me some serious time to fully absorb all that I have learned from and with you this year. This heartbreaking, strange, beautiful, exhausting, unbelievable year. In addition to all of the very practical lessons I just shared, there was a word that kept coming back to me as I reflected on the past year. The word is abide. Perhaps it is because I have spent the last year studying the Old Testament, in which it appears often. Abide with me, Laban says in Genesis. Boaz tells Ruth not to go, but to abide here. Hosea prophesied that the people of Israel must abide with no king, prince, or sacrifice in the land. So it has come up a lot in my reading. But something about the word struck a deeper chord in me. Abide. Stay. The word has been defined, translated from Biblical Hebrew and Greek, and interpreted in a variety of ways. To abide can be to await, to remain or stay, to lodge or dwell, to endure, to bear patiently. To abide can also mean to sojourn, to continue. To abide with calls for both steadfast commitment, faithful commitment, and also an openness to movement, to growth, and to transformation. What I have learned is that just as reality holds hands with heartbreak and grief with beauty, so too is commitment bound up with openness and change. We abide, remain, stay with, and bear patiently in so many ways. Yet through it all, we change and we grow and let go. As a community, I have witnessed your commitment to one another through the joys and the hardships of this past year in the world. Abiding calls us to recognize the ways in which no one of us can fully meet the needs of another, but that we all have different gifts and different resources, and together we create a web of abundance and of care that holds so much more than any one of us could ever hold alone. Even as we change and perhaps turn away and turn inward at times, as we mourn deaths and welcome new life, we know that the flourishing of any one of us depends on the flourishing of us all. We are like a web. Pull one strand and everything moves. I have also witnessed your commitment to this odd and beautiful and constantly changing thing that we call the church. The warmth and joy with which you welcome the quirky and eccentric interns and students, those discerning a call to the ministry, into the community. This is the way that you abide with the church. In opening your hearts to witness the unfolding of God's call,
which I sometimes think might also be God's sense of humor, slightly twisted.
You invest in its future.
In opening your hearts to witness the unfolding of God's call, you invest
In its future.
We abide, remain, stay with, and bear patiently in so many ways. Yet through it all, we change and grow and let go. They happen simultaneously. But what sets the community, the faith community, apart is that on a good day, we do all of this in love. To abide in God, which for me is a name for that love that surpasses all understanding.
To abide in God is to dwell, to remain, to lodge, and to take up the work of love in the world.
To commit to justice and right relationship. To spread hope,
listen deeply,
and speak truth to power. To abide in God is, as Merrill writes,
to accept all nations, the whole universe, to care for,
and to delight in that caring. There's a concept in Buddhism made popular by Roshi Joan Halifax,
a priest in the Japanese Zen tradition, called soft front, strong back. Strong back, soft front.
I teach it to my yoga students often. I ask them to ground themselves and find their strength and stability, to become still. And then I ask them
to soften,
to surrender, to release, to open to what arises. A strong practice of yoga or meditation calls for both of these qualities: strength and release. And it is in this same spirit that we are called to abide, to faithfully commit and stay the course, to dwell together in love, and to soften, to roll with change and allow ourselves, our communities, the church, and the world to be transformed. I cannot tell you exactly what I expected
my first year at the Elliott Church to look like.
But it wasn't this. Yet here we are, staying the course, with faith in tomorrow. A worthy lesson, indeed. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
They say everything can be replaced, but every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light come shining west down to the east. Any day now, any way now, I shall be released. crowd is a man who swears he's not to blame. All day long I hear him shout out loud, because he swears he's being friendly. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, anyway now, I shall be released. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, anyway now, I shall be released. I shall be released. I shall be released. I shall be released.
This I know is where faith is built.
And how?
Sunday by Sunday,
Candle by candle, blessing by blessing, question by genuinely curious question.
as we leave this place, let us take up the work that is ours to do. Let us love one another
and speak truth to power. Let us abide in this community
and in this world. Blessed be and amen.